Welcome back to Knots of Ariadne with Marguerite de la Mer, Reiki Master and Intuitive.
And Kira Lynn with Out of Ashes, Life Coach and Reiki Master.
Awesome. And we're so excited today to talk to you about our name and why we chose the name Knots of Ariadne. It's an interesting story.
Yes, absolutely. So, Ariadne was the daughter of a king, right? Basically,
Yes.
in Athens, Greece, or in ancient Greece.
Yes.
And what I found when I had to look more into it, because, Marguerite came up with the name. I had no idea who Ariadne was. So I had to go look it up and figure out who the heck this lady was. And so what I found was her father kind of went on a rampage after his son was killed in Athens. And as payment, he wanted the Athens people to send 7 daughters and 7 boys into his labyrinth every year to basically be slaughtered by a minotaur.
And the story, so this is the Greek version. And the story is even a little bit more twisted than that because so Minos and Pasiphae, I think that's how you say her name, were the king and queen of Crete. And they're kind of portrayed as these like barbaric people who are taking these Athenian people as tribute. And the Minotaur is actually the product of a union between Pasiphae, the queen, and a white bull that was supposed to be sacrificed to Zeus or something like that.
Okay.
So, in true Greek mythology, it's a twisted story. And so this Minotaur got placed into a labyrinth where these 14 young people would go be sacrificed on a yearly basis. And Ariadne is the daughter, so she's the princess of Crete. And what happens one year is that Theseus, the son, he's the prince in Athens, volunteers, right?
Yes, he volunteers, and he is determined to be the first one who gets out of the maze alive, and intends to kill the Minotaur.
Yes.
But before that can happen, he falls in love with none other than Ariadne.
Yeah, the princess of Crete. So I was wondering, how does this happen? These tributes have a party beforehand or something? Because
Probably.
they have time
their
to fall in
life
love.
is about to end. I mean, if I knew that I likely was not going to live past the end of the week, I would probably live my life a lot differently.
There must be something happening before where the princess is able to meet Theseus and they fall in love. And she helps him out in a big way.
Yes.
So
she gives him a sword that she can use to kill the Minotaur. And then she gives him a big ball of red wool string.
And I've seen it red and I've seen it gold in different versions.
I did see pictures that were gold when I was looking it up.
It could be either one.
But it said in the story I read red. So, which red would make sense because it would stand out better than gold would.
I would prefer red. Yes.
Yeah.
Seems
so that he could find his way back out of the maze.
Because
they tied it off at the beginning so he could get back out.
Yes, because as a reminder, this Minotaur is inside the maze someplace. He's got to go
and
kill it, and then he's got to come back out.
A labyrinth
A
as
labyrinth.
Well. Labyrinths can change and move and shift. They don't always stay the same.
Oh, is that the difference?
Yes.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So there's that kind of element to it too. It's not just a regular old maze.
So this story of Ariadne developed in what we call the Mycenaean era. So that's 750 to 1400 BC. And so how do you think this story kind of relates to what we're doing, Kira? I think it relates in several ways. The fact that we're never really lost. There's always a thread to follow in life, to get answers, to find our way back out of where we are. that at the same time, we are equipped to face our fears as we go into the labyrinth. Yes. I mean, what do you get from this story?
Well, and also I was thinking about the fact that how no matter how tangled up and lost we can get, how much our thread can get caught on things, and like I said, a labyrinth changes. So there was probably instances where he came to the thread and it went right through a wall because a wall formed over it, right? And so even though we see a wall in front of us, it doesn't mean that we can't knock that wall down, climb over that wall, get around it somehow, right? In some way. And
I
so
like an interpretation.
Yes. So, and that's what we're trying to do here with this podcast, is we are trying to help you move through your walls and push through them and continue on your journey and figure out the obstacles to get around and everything like that, and leave a little thread of wisdom for you to follow.
Exactly. Give you the tools you need to go into the labyrinth and maybe face your shadow or whatever questions you have about life and come back out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here we're kind of telling the story from the point of view of Theseus, and our really the image of the thread and Ariadne is very strong in my mind. But just to finish Ariadne's story in Greek mythology, she then elopes with Theseus, but he ends up abandoning her on an island where the god Dionysus,
yes, comes and saves her.
The god of wine and festivities.
You would think that he would be the one to leave her, you know? Like, he just wants to party and have fun.
You know, he doesn't seem that trustworthy. He's just a party guy, but he actually
took really good care of her and elevated her.
He gave her immortality, is what I read someplace. Yes. And they have several kids. One of their kids is named Staphylos, which I thought it was funny, but it's the personification of grapes, in case you ever need the grape spirit to come to your rescue. It's Staphylos.
When you run out of wine on ladies' night.
Yeah. So this is, in this story, which again is the Mycenaean era, it really portrays her, though, as a maiden who abandons her country of origin to follow a lover. It portrays her as someone who is the consort of a god and needs this god in order to elevate herself to be elevated by the good graces of this god to the status of immortal. So while it's the most well-known story of Ariadne, and probably the only one you've heard, if you've heard it, it's not her origin. So if we go back further to the early Bronze Age, so 3000 BC, Ariadne was actually the overarching mother goddess in that area. She was a fertility goddess. She was the weaver of life. She was the mistress of the labyrinth, and the labyrinth represented a place of initiation where people went to and could traverse and go between the physical world and the spiritual world. And she was the mistress of this labyrinth. The image of the weaver of life, I see her like with strings, kind of the strings maybe represent people's timelines, and she's putting them together, and she's making these tapestries. It reminds me of also the Greek story of the Fates, where you have there's three of them.
That's what I was just thinking about, was the Fates.
Yes, but the Fates, even though I didn't find this written anywhere, it could also be something stolen from a more ancient story where Ariadne is actually the mistress of fate,
right?
So when I think of our name, Knots of Ariadne, I also think Knots of Destiny. You know, I think maybe there's a mistake because there's a big knot in it, something went wrong, but actually it is a beautiful tapestry.
I mean, look at some of the macrame work. It's all knots.
It's all knots, and it's beautiful.
Yes.
And so when I saw representations of her online in her ancient form, her bosom is exposed, she's holding snakes, symbols of fertility, and she's part of this matriarchal society where Fertility was paramount. Harvest was represented by female goddesses. It's a pre-patriarchal society where women played a more central role in beliefs and in deities. And so to me, following Ariadne's thread is not just putting ourselves in the position of Theseus and trying to get out of a labyrinth, but it's also following the story of Ariadne all the way back to its origin.
Right, yeah, because you followed a thread and found out all of this that I did not apparently go deep enough to learn about her being the matriarch and the threads of life and everything.
Well, I think it's fascinating because I think it's also us as women. We look for stories like this because they're fascinating, they're interesting, but we also need to see ourselves portrayed in stories, and to know that there's these ancient stories where women were held in much higher regard kind of changes a lot of our inner narrative as well. And I think with this podcast, I want everyone to be exposed to spirituality, but I would in particular, I would like women to get more in touch with their goddess side. Maybe help that solar plexus a little bit.
Yes. If you did not hear last week's episode about the chakras,
you can go back
and
check
that out. Now, speaking about solar plexus.
Mm-hmm. And so that is kind of sums up her story. And another image we could use for another image that comes to mind when you talk about Ariadne's thread, it's following the thread of your own soul, following, you could imagine yourself, if we're not talking about a labyrinth with a minotaur, and we're taking the image to where it's maybe a place where you're finding your own shadow, finding the secrets within yourself, discovering yourself, and being able to come back out. So
yes.
That's what our name represents.
And that is how we came up with the knots of Ariadne.
Originally, we were brainstorming, and I drew this picture. It was sitting on, can't really see it there.
Same.
I don't know, it's very white there.
And for our podcasters, you can't exactly see the picture.
Post it on our Instagram.
We will have it on our Instagram. You can go look at it, check it out, see more. But it's very beautiful. Miss Marguerite is absolutely wonderful at her artwork and drawing. It's definitely one of her mediums of use.
Yes, it was, and this was an intuitive drawing, and I wrote the name Ariadne on it, which is another spelling, another way of saying Ariadne is the original name.
Yes.
And the way I drew her was intuitive drawing. She has a basket of apples. She kind of looks like this divine gold figure. And so she is a closer representation of the original Ariadne, which is the goddess of harvest, when I look at her in this picture.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because it looks like the fields of golden wheat all ready to be harvested.
Oh, that's so good.
And we harvest apples in the fall, which is when we harvest everything. Yes, absolutely.
Apples in the fall.
That's kind of a good lead-in to today's tool of the episode. I think we forgot to do that last episode, but we're going to make sure we get it in. And so the tool I want to talk about today, since we were talking about her channeled drawing and everything like that, I think journaling is a wonderful tool to talk about, and what we can learn through journaling and the insight that it can give us. And so we can use journaling to gain access to our higher self and to our guides, and to work through the knots and the hard times in our life to figure out where it unravels, right? To unravel and come out of the maze. And so I definitely recommend journaling to all of my clients that come in to see me for life coaching or Reiki or anything like that, because I just find it to be very therapeutic and give a lot of information that I probably would not have otherwise been able to figure out without getting it out of my brain and onto paper, and then being able to reread it and look through it and be like, oh, that was a whole nother perspective that I did not even take into account.
So journaling and drawing are two ways of channeling. They're also ways of getting emotions, channeling yourself, getting emotions out of yourself, but also channeling other, doing mediumship through drawing. For someone who wants to start journaling, it could be frustrating. So what would you suggest? Because I know that when people imagine journaling, they kind of think about this teen that's writing about, today I had apples for lunch and Paul said hi to me and winked. So what
and I think we still write about those types of things. I know I do sometimes if I'm sitting down and I'm just like, I don't know what I want to write about today at all. And so I start off with, I woke up today and this happened, or I went here and this happened. And I just start writing, and I feel this right now, and right now I'm looking at this, and I just start writing random things, and eventually it starts to flow into something else. And so even though it might feel like you're writing absolutely stupid things, if you commit to sitting down and writing for 10 to 20 minutes every single day, you will start to see things come out that you maybe didn't even realize that you were dealing with, or was that you were feeling or thinking inside of you. And that is a lot of it, I feel, is just messages from your higher self that's deep down inside, or energy that you're holding within yourself that you've kind of buried, feelings and emotions that you didn't allow yourself to feel in the moment when they wanted to be felt. And so now, because you're kind of clearing away the clutter, so to say, all the things that stick in our mind and clutter up our mind, it's another form of meditation in a way. I think you actually mentioned that already. But and so we're able to clear away all that clutter and get down to the root of what's causing us joy or despair or stress or sadness or whatever is there that we need to move that energy out of the body. Or if we've had a Reiki session done, that we've already kind of worked to move that energy and shift everything and get it to a place where we can finally release it. And that's the release, is through our hand, through the pencil or pen onto the paper.
Yes, through journaling and through drawing as well, I think is another form of another tool that's very close to journaling.
Absolutely.
But and last time
journaling and pictures.
Journaling and pictures. Last time we talked about energy healing, and maybe for people who aren't who don't want to start with that, you could start with journaling. It's another way to move energy out through expression. And I journaled through high school. It was sometimes talking about what happened that day, but a lot of mine was also fictionalized. Talking about fictional characters and kind of living out different emotions through these fictional characters. Writing a poem from the viewpoint of... It was very dramatic, I'll tell you that. It was from the viewpoint of someone who just lost their lover or something like that. But it kind of helped me express different things. Like that poem helped me express the fear of losing someone you care about.
Absolutely.
And
don't writers and songwriters do that already?
All the time.
I mean,
yes.
We've heard about songwriters can't always write music unless they go through a hard time, and they will draw on the energy of like a really bad breakup or something. Or I've even heard that some songwriters will cause a really bad breakup just so that they can write music again because they've hit a block.
So committing to sitting down and writing for 20 minutes seems like maybe a crazy idea if you don't feel artistic, but that's the whole point is to not be perfect. You have to get over the idea that, first of all, no one has to read your journal but you. Like, you don't have to share it with anybody. And secondly...
And I recommend that you don't read other people's journals.
Exactly. That's
Unless
a no.
they share it with you, please.
That is a no. If you find something in a journal you didn't want to read, it's your fault. I'm just letting you know.
Yes, absolutely. Do not go through your spouse's drawer, bedside drawer, whatever, wherever they keep it.
Yeah.
Respect their privacy. They will come to you when they are ready.
Respect their privacy. You might find yourself being a very, like a bad character in that novel that they're writing. That will not work out good for you.
Yes.
But anyways, you have to get over the idea of perfection. You have to get over the idea that what you're writing is going to be consistent in any way. You might start off talking about your day, like you said, and then all of a sudden an idea comes through. Mm-hmm. And just write it. Just write it. And I don't care if it becomes a bunch of words at one point, like colors or shapes that you're describing. It's going to mean something at one point. It's going to come together.
Yes.
A lot of mediums actually start by seeing shapes and colors and various words. So you could be writing things that you're channeling and not realize it until it's actually more developed.
Yes. And same with drawing. Mm-hmm. A lot of mediums will be drawing and they will draw your loved one and that kind of thing. And when you first start drawing and making these things, you have no idea what you're drawing. You have no idea what you're putting down. You think it's just imagination and creativity, but you may potentially be channeling that from somewhere else, from a higher source, an angel or your higher self or whoever it might be, right?
Mm-hmm. Whoever, your guides, your ancestors. And it's exciting too to discover yourself. I think a lot of us think maybe this is not productive or it's a waste of time, but it's the most exciting thing, and I think it's actually one of our main missions on Earth is to discover and develop ourselves.
Absolutely.
And it is not selfish at all.
No. We come into this Earth completely unaware of who we are, completely dependent on other people, completely egocentric, because we literally cannot meet any of our needs as a baby. And so we have to depend on other people and only are concerned about what we need in that moment. And then we go through our childhood and we continue to kind of think about me, and what I, and what I need. But then society conditions us. No, you need to think about everyone else. You need to think about other people. And so then we go through this whole new evolution of not me, but them, or not me, but you, only to come back around and realize it is still me.
If you take care of you, you can take care of others as well. And I like how everything you just said summarizes this whole theme with Ariadne, because it is the thread of life.
Absolutely.
It is, and journaling is an excellent tool to travel through that, to discover that, yes, you're intertwined with so many other people in your life, but at the end of the day, you are that single thread, and you need to have a direction and understand why you're here.
Absolutely.
And I think maybe we can go ahead and talk about a person of the day, but I want to talk about, we talked about Ariadne because that's the name, the person that inspired the name of our podcast. But when we talk about Ariadne and the Greek story and the ancient story that came before that, to me it shows that there is really maybe not so much a person, Ariadne, but a spirit. And when I look at a lot of some people may disagree, but when I look at a lot of the Greek and ancient deities, I don't see them necessarily as that specific story or that specific person, but really a spirit. So Ariadne and Demeter could be the same spirit, they just appear differently. And I think that there's a lot of things that I treat that way on a personal level. A spirit of jaguar and a spirit of tiger could be very similar. It could be the same thing, just one has stripes, one has... And so if we're going to honor Ariadne, I don't think necessarily about honoring a specific deity. I think more of honoring like this kind of goddess female spirit, this harvest spirit, this abundant spirit is how I see it.
Yes. Yes. It kind of sounds like the Empress, like from our last episode in the tarot.
It does sound like that could be part of that same
Everything
spirit.
is tied
It goes
together.
back to the same. You know, the ancient matriarchal goddess spirit. It could be. So, and I would say, given the ability to see things like that, maybe in your own practice, I would encourage you not to limit yourself with too much dogmatism and just be open to all these mythological stories and other stories that came before them and whatever people have to add, because we're all just humans telling stories, and it all makes sense, but it also doesn't if you're gonna dwell in the details.
Yes. Well, it's like playing a game of telephone over generations and years, and you know what started as one thing, we will never know what the original thing actually was.
We won't know, but it all has a meaning.
Yes. You enjoyed learning about how we came up with the name Knots of Ariadne, learning about Ariadne and who she was, or the spirit that she is, if you will.
Yes.
Please go check out our Instagram page, Knots of Ariadne. Follow us there for more content, bloopers, because there are tons of bloopers coming out of this. So much. And other content that we like to share from you from our own pages as well. Follow me at Out of Ashes LC on Instagram, Facebook, and you can find Marguerite.
Follow me at Marguerite de la Mer. I'll be posting videos of my sound work, videos of my art. I'm so excited to share all this with you and grow with you spiritually. And if there's anything you want us to discuss, DM us in our Instagram. And we can totally
let us know what you want to hear about.
What do you want to hear about?
We will work that into our schedule. Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you.